I want to begin by thanking Norml for this conference. It's my understanding that the conference that our organization held back in January of 2012, that conference inspired this one, so that made me feel really good. My name is Strickland. I am the founder and CEO of Mothers Against Teen Violence. And I'm also the mother of a murdered son. My son was abducted and killed with a friend by two teenagers who were under the influence of illegal drugs, armed with handguns. They were engaged in gang activity. My son Chris had been, he was a graduate of St. Mark's School of Texas, a private school in Dallas. He was vice president of the upper school orchestra. He was a member of the varsity football and track teams. And the young man who was killed with him was vice president of his graduating class at the Business and Law Magnet, and he was an Eagle Scout. So back in 1994, I accepted the challenge of building an organization, a social services organization, dedicated to helping parents of murdered children heal their lives and to engage in teen violence prevention. And I think it's fair to say that I didn't choose this work actually chose me. So fast forward to 2008. I was sitting in my office working, and the radio was on, it was playing in the background. I wasn't really listening. When I began to listen, I heard Judge Gray, and he was giving an interview on NPR. And as I began to listen, I actually heard the messaging for drug policy reform for the very first time. So you see, even though my son was killed in a random crime committed by teenagers who were using hard drugs and they were involved in gang activity, I never made the connection. I'm sort of like Margarita McCullough, who spoke to you this morning. I never made the connection between gang activity and the war on drugs. I never made the connection between the war on drugs and mass incarceration or the high dropout rates among students of color or a long list of other intractable social ills. And I knew nothing of the stunning similarities between alcohol prohibition of the 20s and 30s and drug prohibition as embodied by the drug war. And imagine how stunned I was to learn that far from keeping our communities safer, the drug war actually does not keep drugs out of the hands of our children, and it is actually the cause of much of the violence and with drug trafficking and all. So we concluded, my organization, that a social services organization is certainly it has an important role to play when it comes to meeting the pressing and immediate needs of families and children, but that these programs are powerless to change policy. So we invited Judge Gray to our annual luncheon in 2009, and the rest, as they say, is history. So today, Mothers Against Teen Violence has a mission of information, education, and advocacy for drug policy reform. We believe that our drug policy should be based on science, equity, and compassion. We believe that all people suffering from the disease of addiction should have access to treatment. And we believe that arresting and incarcerating nonviolent drug users needs to end now. So clearly, it's going to take a movement to wrestle drug policy from the hands of the criminal justice system and put it in the public health arena where it actually belongs. And you know, successful movements never simply are a matter of happenstance. Movements require goal setting, they require strategizing, grassroots, organizing, time, money, leadership, all of the above. And movements require collaboration. So in the short time that I have to spend with you, I want to share with you some of the collaborative efforts that our organization is engaged in. I want to share with you what we managed to do this last session in Austin and during the legislative session, and share with you what we are doing locally. So starting with collaborations, I'm on the steering committee of Moms United to End the War on Drugs. And that is a movement, I believe, that has the potential to do tremendous good in terms of moving this movement forward. I was invited to become an op-ed project Public Voices Fellow at Texas Women's University. And that was a year-long project that, and due to my participation in it, my opinion pieces appeared in the Huffington Post, on Al Jazeera English, and my CNN.com piece about the Colorado mass shooting actually received over 1,100 Facebook likes and over 500 comments. In February, I had the privilege of visiting Ciudad Juarez for a border experience hosted by the Fellowship of Reconciliation. And this was a group of pastors, writers, activists, and we were there to meet with elected officials, with priests, activists, college professors, all of the above. This was a 4-day experience, and it allowed me to see firsthand, up close, the devastation that's been visited on Mexico as a result of the war on drugs. Back in April, I spoke at a rally outside Dawson State Jail. Now, for those of you who don't know, Dawson State Jail is located in downtown Dallas on Commerce Street. And this is a privately run facility. It's run by CCA. You heard about CCA earlier. One of the speakers mentioned that. But 4 people in recent years have died at that facility, and they died due to lack of medical attention. One of those persons was a newborn baby. Dawson State Jail is a low security, minimum security prison, and particularly it houses almost exclusively drug offenders. So it makes a mockery of justice when a person incarcerated for a nonviolent offense must risk her life as she pays her debt to society. Now, in terms of our local, let me go with our legislative activities. In the regular session of the legislature, and you know that they are now in special session, but in the regular session, MATV championed a harm reduction agenda. So I made probably half a dozen trips back and forth between April and May. We hosted a harm reduction day at the Capitol. There were 4 other organizations who participated in that, and our legislative agenda included 2 bills. One, and there are fact sheets at our table next door for anyone who's interested in the details. But the first was a syringe exchange bill. That was House Bill 3238. And that bill was important because Texas ranks near the top among states in the cumulative AIDS cases. And Dallas County has the highest HIV AIDS rate in the state. But Texas is one of the only states with, where syringe exchange programs are illegal. So syringe exchange passed the County Affairs Committee where it was assigned. It was voted, and then it was voted out of the Calendars Committee. And following a floor debate, it was unfortunately defeated by a very close margin, about 9 votes. The Good Samaritan bill was filed by my representative, Eric Johnson, at my request, and I'm very thankful to him for doing that. And I asked him to file this bill because, as you know, there is an overdose epidemic in this nation, and there's also an overdose epidemic here in Texas. And the number one reason that people don't call 911 in overdose situations is because of the fear of arrest and prosecution. So in an overdose situation, House Bill 1743 would have encouraged a would-be Good Samaritan to seek emergency assistance by offering a defense to prosecution for minor drug offenses. Our bill was voted out of the House Criminal Jurisprudence Committee by a unanimous vote. And then it went to calendars, and within a few days, 4 or 5 days, it was voted out of calendars and placed on the agenda. But unfortunately, that bill died because the legislature ran out of time. The legislature closed. So we feel good about how far our bills got in the session, although we didn't ultimately get the bills passed. But we will be back in 2015. So locally, we convene a monthly drug policy discussion group. As a matter of fact, we convene 2 groups, one in Dallas and one in Arlington. And the Arlington group is led by Dr. Marvin Delaney, who is here, and he chairs the history department at UT Arlington. And the Dallas group is led by Bob Ramsey, who is a quintessential drug policy reformer, and they do an excellent job convening those groups. And the whole idea being that drug policy is a complex issue. And the first step in any movement is to educate people. And so this is a place where people can come and learn about the issue. In January of 2012, I mentioned earlier, we held our first ever Texas Conference on Drug Policy. We had 24 speakers and panelists from all over North America, including Dr. Gabor Mate. He was our keynote. We had 14 sessions, and we had a criminal justice and a public health track. And this was, again, over 2.5 days, and it was a phenomenal event and a phenomenal achievement. We hold community forums, again, to educate the public about this issue. Generally, we are invited to churches or other organizations to come in and help them connect the dots between drug policy and the issues that they care about or that they are familiar with. We also have a community engagement committee, and that was formed in 2012, so it's fairly new, and it works for change at the local level. Our community engagement committee is working to bring attention to a little-known law that was passed in Texas in 2007, and I bet you didn't know this, but in 2007, the Texas legislature passed a law that allows for ticketing rather than arresting people for marijuana possession, or some other misdemeanors are also on that list. How many of you knew about that? Okay, you guys know more than I thought. This was a permissive law, right? So you had to opt in, and Travis County is the only county that's opted in. But the question is, why haven't some of these other counties opted in? We need some of y'all working with us in this, working with the cities and the counties where you live to help us bring attention to this issue, because this is a way for us to move this agenda forward. Although nonviolent drug possession, those people don't pose a threat to public safety, as you know. But this category of offenders makes up about 90% of those of drug-related arrests. And I think you may have heard about this earlier, but according to the Texas Department of Public Safety, there were nearly 126,000 arrests for simple possession in Texas in 2010. And over 76,000 of those arrests were for possession of marijuana. So by conservative estimates, these arrests cost our state, cost taxpayers about $125 million, right? So meanwhile, in 2010, here are the clearance rates for violent and serious crimes in our state. For murder, 74%. This is for counties over 100,000. Aggravated assault, 49%. Rape, 34%. Burglary, 12%. Auto theft, 5%. So we can't improve these clearance rates unless we stop expending so many of our law enforcement dollars on nonviolent drug users. And not only could we save millions of dollars, but we could also reduce the tremendous personal harms cost to individuals who are settled, and these are primarily young African American, Latino men who are being saddled with these arrests that follow them for life. So this is a huge issue. We invite Norml to join with us to advocate for getting more of our municipalities and our counties to opt into this law. Now, hopefully I've given you a sense of the work that we're doing and how we're contributing to this movement. And our work is, as we see it, it's focused, it's strategic, and it's collaborative. So we believe this work warrants your support. And if you're interested in joining our organization, you can do so at our table. You can join us for any amount. And I was going to offer you a free book if you join for $20, but all of our books are gone by now, unfortunately, or fortunately. And then one of those books was Judge Gray's book, the book that I read that introduced me to this issue. But membership has its privileges, and we'd be happy to talk to you about those privileges. And importantly, your membership payment today will be matched dollar for dollar by the Open Society Foundation due to a general match from them. So please stop by our table and join. So as I close, back in the 19th and 20th century, the 18th and 19th centuries rather, there would have been a whole lot of people who would have told you, given you all kinds of reasons why slavery would never end. But it did end, didn't it? And in the first half of the 20th century, there would have been millions of people to tell you why racial integration and voting rights for African Americans would never happen. But it happened, didn't it? And today, I've had my fill of people telling me why the drug war is never going to end. I'm just sick of hearing that. So, quoting the 19th century Unitarian minister and abolitionist Theodore Parker, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said nearly 50 years ago, "The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice." And you must know that this arc doesn't bend on its own. And Ira Glasser of the ACLU reminds us that this arc bends toward justice because of activists like me and you and volunteers who show up and give their time and the people who lead and follow. We are responsible for bending the arc of the universe toward justice. This movement is about equity, it's about compassion, it's about liberty and personal freedoms. But most importantly, I believe it's about justice. And for that reason, I believe we will ultimately prevail. Thank you.